Do you want to create NPCs that'll keep your players immersed, engaged, and rolling with laughter without wasting a bunch of your time? In today's video, I'll be explaining why your NPCs suck. There's 5 things and you're probably doing at least one of them. I'll explain to you what makes an amazing NPC, and I'll teach you my simple 4-step system for making incredible NPCs every single time.
Plus, there's a free PDF template.
I'm the Alpine DM. This is you. Let's get to it. Why your NPCs suck. Real quick, I'm gonna give you an example of a mediocre NPC, and now you pay attention, because there's 5 things that I'm gonna do wrong, okay? You approach the captain of the guard while he's cleaning his armor, and as you meet his eyes, he greets you. Ah, the brave adventurers who saved our town. How may I serve you? Okay, so that's all fine and dandy, and it gets the job done, but did you catch the 5 mistakes that I made? Okay, what are they?
No body language, no voice distinction, a generic description, no room for questions, and no personality.
Now the next question is what makes for an amazing NPC. Before I explain that, I'm going to show you what happens if I take the exact same situation I just used and invert the 5 mistakes just so you can see what happens. You approach the captain of the guard while he's furiously scrubbing an oil spot off of his helmet. As you meet his eyes, a wide smile spreads across his wrinkled face and he greets you. Ah, the brave adventurers who saved our town. How may I serve you? But make it snappy. I have a meeting with the queen soon and she will not be happy if I'm late. So first, body language. I wasn't just sitting there. I was actually trying to clean an imaginary helmet. And I literally greeted the NPCs with open arms. If your character's shy and timid, shrink down a little. If they're big and loud, take up more space. If they're really nervous, look around rapidly. Just really try to get into this character's mindset and behave how they would behave with more than just your words. Really get your whole presence into it. Secondly, I used a slightly different voice than my regular dungeon master, my talking voice. I made it very clear when I was speaking as the dungeon master versus when I was speaking as the NPC. And you don't need to just put on a silly accent, although of course you can, but that's a whole other video. This can also be done with the tone of your voice, the pitch, the cadence of your words, or with certain phrases that are used frequently. Number 3, I used a slightly more specific description. In this case, the only real difference with the character is that he had a wrinkled face, but even that little extra word can help make it more vivid for the players so that they're gonna remember it and make it more real to them. Number 4, I invited questions by sprinkling certain little details in that'll make it easier for the players to engage and get immersed in the role playing. It just kind of gets the ball rolling. So how did he get that oil smudge on his helmet? And why does he need to clean it off so badly? He also mentioned that there's a meeting coming up with the queen. What is that meeting about? Just little things like these can make it a lot easier for everyone to get involved. And finally, personality. He had a broad smile when he greeted the PCs, so he's probably a pretty happy and jolly fellow, but he also made sure that the characters are going to keep it snappy because he does maintain a sense of professionality and there's an urgency to whatever this meeting is. So even just those 2 little details give you a bit more insight into this character's personality. And of course, this is just an example. With a real NPC, you can get much more involved in this. So now that you've seen that example, we can go through what makes for an incredible NPC. And basically, they're incredible when they feel real. They become memorable to the players when they're portrayed as dynamic and actually part of the living world that you're creating in your collective imagination. You don't want them to be flat, 2D characters that only exist in this little snow globe where they only exist and things only happen to them when the players are interacting with them. No, you want them to actually be alive and real within the world. So what do they do when the players aren't there? These are things that you need to think about, but don't have to actually flesh out completely. Don't go through and walk through their entire day. You don't need to do that. We're not writing a novel. What we want to do is present the illusion of depth. And the best way to create an illusion of depth is with my 4-part system called GUPP. Step 1 is to get specific. Aside from just their race and gender, come up with a few very specific, concrete details to help you describe the character. This will help you make it a very succinct but vivid description that'll make it much more memorable for your players and easier for them to keep track of. For example, they're not just meeting the castle's weapon master, they're meeting a half-elf who wears a beautiful green cloak embroidered with silver stitching on the back in the shape of a massive oak tree. Their red hair is up in kind of a messy bun, and you can see underneath all of their fingernails there's a bit of dirt. And just like that, just a couple very specific details, you already get a glimpse into what this character is, and you have a more clear mental picture of them. For this, you want to consider their clothing, any scars, if they have certain makeup, tattoos, hairstyle, and just their overall physical presence. So for this step, I want you to come up with 3 specific details to describe this character. Step 2 is a unique aspect, and this is probably the most important and or potentially the most fun step in all of the GUPP system. This step is all about creating something that is going to make your character unique and distinct and make them stand out. Everybody can imagine what a soldier or a knight looks like and probably how they would behave, but if that's the NPC you're creating, what makes them different from all the others? What makes them a named character? Focus on this unique thing that makes them stand out and crank it up 1000%. Now, of course, one of the best ways to make someone distinct is with a voice or with a silly accent, and I highly recommend you do that, but that's a whole different video, and there's so many other ways that we're gonna get into. For example, think about any little quirks or even hobbies that they have. These could be physical things such as having golden glowing eyes or literally being undead, but still kind of a good guy. Or these could be behavioral things such as always making intense eye contact or constantly using cliches incorrectly and laughing at themselves about it. Imagine the role-playing potential of a savage warlord who is obsessed with his very nice tea kettle and he protects it with his life. Anytime there's peace negotiations or talks of treaties, he insists on making tea for every single person individually before anyone can start talking. So even silly little things like these could be the unique aspect of the character. Again, we know how a savage warlord would probably behave, but there's this aspect to them that he really likes this fancy tea kettle and he loves tea. That's memorable. That's gonna make the players engage with him way more. Step 3 is personality. If you understand the NPC's personality, it's gonna make it so much easier for you to roleplay them and to adapt to various player shenanigans that are surely going to happen. Now, of course, you can use words to describe their personality, such as calm or grumpy or excitable, but I think a much better way to do this and to get more depth to it, or at least the illusion of depth, is to come up with these 3 things. First one is come up with something that they love, then come up with something that they hate, and finally figure out what would make them laugh. These are very specific personality traits that give you a much better idea of how they might behave, and your brain is going to fill in the gaps between these 3 things to give you an overall impression of their personality so you can better understand and portray them for your players. For example, this could be a merchant. He loves getting the better end of a bargain and snaking his way through deals. He hates when people question him on his opinion and expertise, and he laughs at poor people. So already with just these 3 details, you can have a much better idea of who this merchant is and why they're probably a kind of shitty person. And finally, step 4 is purpose. Now, when we're talking about purpose for the NPC, I mean both in the game, what is this NPC's life general purpose, and also what is this NPC's purpose in relation to the plot and the party. To determine their life purpose, just kind of think back on everything that you've done so far. This could be something intense like avenge their parents' death, or their purpose is to provide the best that they can for their family and make the most delicious bread you've ever tasted. Another way to think about this is what motivates them. Again, this is just one more thing that'll help the character feel more real and will help you to make better, faster decisions when you're role-playing as them. Secondly, what is this character's purpose in relation to the game itself and to the plot? This could be very simple, and it is they exist simply to sell potions, or it could be something more advanced and intricate, ideally with an NPC that is going to be recurring. You want them to have a larger purpose within the plot. They might have vital information that they can pass along to the PCs if they ask the right questions, or maybe they're trying to secretly sabotage the PCs against this world-ending whatever. Perhaps they can provide a safe house in a certain city or make different connections or transport them somewhere. Very mechanically within the game, how do they drive the plot along. And of course they can have more than one purpose, it'll probably change along the way, but having a clear goal in mind, even if the players don't know what that goal is gonna make that NPC so much more immersive and engaging, and they will feel way more real to the players, and they will remember them, they'll be rolling with laughter, and it will be a fun time for everybody. So that's what I got for you today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or sharing it with a friend, and be sure to leave a comment. What is the best NPC interaction you've ever had as a Dungeon Master or as a player?
And don't forget the PDF that you can get for free.
Alright, thanks you. Thanks for watching.